All right. Welcome to the Biokats Flag Football Podcast. Jerry Howard, your host. The Flag Football Podcast. This is your source for Colorado flag football this year. We have a special guest today. We have Greg Holstine. He is actually, Greg, you might need to explain your position, but the best I can do is you were basically the head referee for CHSAA and helping with the rules and implementation. And we want to publicly say thank you for being out at the Jamboree yesterday. That was a great event. But Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Now, Greg, as we talked a little bit about offline and yesterday at the Jamboree, I'm actually fairly new to flag football. I played in college. I know the boys side really well, but there's a lot of questions, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I'm sure a lot of parents, players, and coaches all have questions about the flag football rules. One, how it's different than the boys, and then two, just kind of, let's just talk about what are some of the basic rules, how it works, first downs, and things like that, because we want this to be informative for everybody.
You bet. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Yep. I was just going to say, you want to, just start with the layout of the field, maybe, and a little bit of those particulars, right?
Yeah, let's start with the field, because I noticed yesterday is a little bit shorter from a width standpoint. I noticed it's 20 yards shorter lengthwise, but talk about it still has 10-yard end zones, which is kind of cool. But talk about just a little bit from that aspect, and then talk about, like, are there kickoffs? Are there not kickoffs? How punts work, things like that. Just kind of go over the basics, and then I have a bunch of knucklehead questions I want to ask, but let's just start from there.
You bet. So the field, yeah, you're right. The field is smaller, right? So it's 80 yards long plus the two end zones, so it's 100 if you think of that, right? But playing field is 80 and it's 40 wide.
Okay.
So we really use, and folks will start to notice, right? If we're at a field that has lacrosse lines on the field, we use those lines because that's the 80 by 40.
Okay, perfect. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and then the one thing that sometimes gets confusing is because the 50-yard line is really the 40-yard line, right? That's midfield.
Right. That's midfield.
So
yeah.
when we play on a stadium field and they got those big numbers painted on the field, it plays with your mind a little bit, right?
Gotcha.
But yeah, so you think of the our 40 is midfield, and then first downs are at the 20s, the 40 and the 20, and then of course the goal line. So we call those zone lines the gains. So the game will start off with the offense taking the ball at the 14, and so it becomes a 1st and 6 to get to that 20. And then from there on, whatever, obviously they get a first down, whatever it is. It could be 1st and 20 or 1st and 1, to get to the 40 sort of thing, right? And on down the field we go. They get 4 plays to get to a first down. On 4th down, teams will be asked, do you want to punt? You not feel comfortable about going for it on 4th and long, right? Perhaps, right? And so teams have that option. They declare, and then they must punt. There are no fake punts.
Okay.
And so then, that's kind of made the lay of the land there a little bit. There is a line, the line of scrimmage is something else maybe to highlight, is that there's a 1-yard line of scrimmage or neutral zone. So there's in essence 2 lines of scrimmages, one for the offense and one for the defense, and that has to be a yard apart.
Okay.
So once the ball is snapped, all 7 defensive players could rush. There's no restrictions there. And then all offensive players are eligible to catch a pass or run the ball, whichever way, right? All 7 are eligible to have the ball in their hands at some point.
No, that's great. Now talk about so like on passes, or if a player is running and drops the ball, like with fumble, like can a defensive player pick it up? How does that work?
You bet. So first, just a fumble. So really, I'll give a caveat to this, but bottom line is when the ball hits the ground, it becomes dead.
Okay.
So if it's So obviously, if someone's running with it and they drop the ball, it's dead. So we don't have people jumping on each other, diving, no pads,
Right.
no helmets, right? So that's the reason for that, right? No one's getting hurt diving on a ball.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
the exception to that, ball hitting the ground exception, is on a punt. So a ball gets punted, it hits the ground, it bounces. There's no limitation. It could bounce 20 times.
Okay.
It could roll, and it could still be touched or picked up. If it would just happen to be
By
touched
either team?
by either team, well,
Like if
so
the
so yeah,
defense.
so
Yeah.
the defense could kill it by just touching it.
Okay.
So if the ball
So
is
the
bouncing
defense
and
can't.
or rolling, it becomes dead, and it becomes then the receiving team's ball at that point.
So
If it's
so one.
bouncing or if it's bouncing or rolling, and the offense can then pick, or the receivers can pick that ball up and then advance.
Okay, perfect. So basically, if I punt the ball and I'm on the punting team, it hits the ground. Is if the offense doesn't touch it and I touch it, it's automatically dead. I can't pick it up and advance it like an
Correct.
onside kick or something like that.
Correct. Correct. It would
Okay.
just be
Okay.
the ball would be dead there. Very very similar to the tackle game there, right? If ball's touched, it becomes dead, right? So on a punt, right?
Yeah. Okay. No, that sounds good. Now, on a fumble, now, like I said, I've played before. Can or maybe not on a fumble. Let's talk when a receiver or a running back, one of the offensive players is running with the ball. If the defense comes up and strips them of the ball, it doesn't touch the ground. If they strip them of the ball, is that legit? Is that alive? And then they can go run the other way? Or as soon as there's like contact with two players, the whistle kind of blows. I mean, I know they have to pull the flags, but
Yeah.
but fill me in on that kind of a.
Yeah. Yeah. So great question. There actually is a rule in place that says that a player cannot bat or pull or grab or slap or whatever else a ball out of another player's hands.
Wow.
So again, some safety there as well, right?
Okay. Okay.
So you just can't, so I just couldn't run up to you and take the ball out of your hands and run the other way.
Okay.
Uh, so that's illegal. That would become a penalty on the defense.
Okay.
And then I had another thought there for a moment. So we'll come back to that.
No, that's fine. I was just kind of curious because what if, okay, the player is running with the ball and they are kind of bobbling it, whether it's a reception or they're actually running and they kind of the ball slips out of their hands. If the defender catches that before it hits the ground, that's okay, right? That's a
That
live.
that would be. So you could have that, or you could have the pitch back that occurs, right? The ball's in the air,
Yeah.
and if the defender was somehow got in the middle of that and
Okay.
grabbed the ball out of midair, yeah, all's legal there.
Okay, good. No, that's good to know because I'm just, like I said, I'm sure a lot of parents new to the game. Like I said, I'm just trying to understand how things go. Now,
Yeah.
talk about, now, you have to explain this to me. When teams have flags, I hear people call them poppers. Where did that come from? And what is I mean, I get it that a popper is a flag, but how did that name come about?
Yeah, so there's a couple different brands of flag belts.
Okay.
All right, so Colorado has adopted what they call as the triple threat flag. So the
Okay.
belt and the flags are all one piece, and they're just and there's just a clip, to clip
They
them
just,
around your waist.
yeah, they
Yep.
just,
Now the poppers, though, so that's a different brand of flags, and Colorado does not use those, but
okay.
but it's a flag belt, but then there's a connector where the flag connects into a socket essentially,
Gotcha.
and when you pull that flag, it makes the sound of a pop.
Pop. Got
Yeah,
it.
so pop sockets, poppers, things like that are commonly, around those kinds of flag belts. And there are some leagues that do that, maybe some youth, and there's probably some, I believe even some of the college teams end up using those. But Colorado adopted the triple threat flag for use, so we won't see any of those pop sockets.
Okay. Now, yesterday at the Jamboree, one of the things I saw, and I just thought it was strange. So after a team scores a touchdown, the refs would not call a touchdown until the offensive team that scored, they pulled the flag. Explain that to me, because that just sounds kind of awkward, I guess. Everybody saw it was a touchdown, but tell me about how that works and why it's that way.
Yeah, so ideally what would happen, again, the ball carrier takes the ball across the line of scrimmage or catches a forward pass for a touchdown, right? We should be signaling touchdown, but what we will also, the secondary part of that is then we want to confirm that flag belt wasn't altered some way, tied in a knot. We want to make sure that it can come off. So we just asked for the flag belt to be pulled. Everyone knows that there was no incidental going on, and everything was legal, right? So then there should just be that secondary sign. Yep, we've got confirmation that everything was clean.
Okay. Are there any other type of things when an interception happens? Oh, well, let's talk about blocking, because one of the things I noticed yesterday is there would be a running back in the back and the girls would have their hands behind their back. Talk to me about how blocking works in flag football.
You bet. So there's two, we'll talk about two different situations. So the one in the backfield, right, is most common, right? So you have a rusher, and then you have, to your point, your running back is protecting the quarterback. So in flag, that blocker is required to have their hands either behind their back or at their sides. They can also have them in front of their bodies in Colorado, similar to how they would have them behind their backs. Again, kind of down to their sides and in front, right, kind of thing. They're not out in front pushing or extending their arms, right? So bottom line is hands. We'll just say hands at the side or hands behind their back, and they can essentially move, if you will, slide with that rusher to ward them off from, to give the quarterback an extra, second or two, whatever it happens to be, right? There isn't contact allowed in flag football, but we also know that there's incidental contact. And I like to talk about contact similar to the basketball game, where basketball is a non-contact sport. But we all know that there's contact because it happens as part of the game, right? What I like to say is when you start to initiate contact, that's where the real difference is on a penalty. So if you're a rusher and you come in and you happen to extend your hand, or maybe you do the old push them sideways and run by them, swim move kind of thing. Yeah. Or maybe the defender or the offensive person, the blocker, ends up sticking a knee out or sticking an elbow out, sort of thing, or
try to. Sometimes you see this, right?
Their shoulder, some of that stuff where they like what you just did. You're initiating that contact, right? Versus if you were just sliding with me and we were rotating around, where we might bump each other. That's that incidental piece. It's when you start throwing a shoulder or an elbow, or you stick your arm out, or whatever it happens to be. That's where we get in trouble with that contact.
Now, as you mentioned, there's really no contact. So the defensive rusher, they can't bull rush a blocker.
Correct.
They can't, and like you said, they can't do like a swim move where they put their hand on their shoulder and move past them.
Right.
So both really, offense and defense, you cannot initiate any contact. Now, like you said, there's going to be incidental, right? Someone's going to get in my way and I'm trying to move forward and we might bump. But as long as the hands aren't on either one's body, then, that would be a flag, right? So if the rusher put their hands on the blocker's body, that's an automatic flag. Is that like a 10-yard penalty, or what kind of penalty is that?
That is a 10-yard penalty.
Okay. Kind of like a holding call or something.
Kind of like a holding, yeah. Illegal. Bottom line, illegal use of hands, right?
Gotcha.
And so we and and so that's where the backfield is where the majority of that blocking is going to happen. The other piece that I want to talk about is blocking downfield or
Yes. Yeah.
blocking that occurs downfield. So similar, again, we talk about being in position with your arms and everything. The same thing applies downfield. So if you can't, maybe in a tackle game you might have a pulling guard and he's out and leading the running back
Leading the
down the
charge.
field, right? So in flag, that's illegal.
So you can't, you, so let's say I ran a sweep. I can have someone pull, they can run, but they can't have their hands out. But if I'm running with my hands,
Right.
you're saying you can't do that?
Yeah, right. So again, we don't want someone clearing a path essentially, and
Gotcha.
not necessarily physically, right,
Right.
using their hands or whatever to push someone away, but just to
Right.
be running as a guard,
As a shield.
as a shield. Yeah, that stuff is illegal. So whether it's one person, two people, think about two runners or two players side by side, kind of shoulder to shoulder running, right?
Yeah.
Illegal, right? Again, you're really
Okay.
creating the shield, right?
Yeah.
Now, but I will tell you
Yeah.
that downfield blocking is allowed if it's
Okay.
legal, right? So legal blocking again
So hands down.
requires a person to be, what do I say, stationary, right? Be set with their arms at their side or behind their back again, right? But now they get less opportunity to move as much. So
Oh.
I like this play. So we've all seen the receiver on the right side, drag across the middle and say a 5 yard pass, right, 10 yard pass, real easy, and then they continue down toward the left sideline, and then they hit the sideline and they head for home, right?
Yeah.
So all that's legal, right? So what also can be legal as far as the blocking standpoint is, so you get that receiver on the right doing that drag pass, you might have a receiver on the left hand side run down about, let's just say at 10 yards or so,
Yeah.
and set up legally, stand there, just stand there, and her teammate can run by her and essentially rub her, right? And then
You
that
but
defense,
she
it
has to
has to be
be
stationary.
can't be moving.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I was wondering about is when you have, let's say it's like you described, but it's maybe 10 yards, like an in route or something.
Yeah.
And they're coming across and there's someone over here and then they kind of turn up, like, their pass, the two offensive players pass cross and she's running. If she wants to be a blocker or a shield, because eventually if one gets behind the other and they're both running, it's what you just described as a shield, and that would be a legal block. And I'm assuming the flag would, wherever the flag is dropped at that
Spot
point,
foul. Yeah.
stops the ball, and that's where the ball would be placed.
Yeah. Yeah. With the penalty. So it'd be a spot foul wherever that block took place, right?
And then the
We
penalty would be
wouldn't,
assessed.
and then the penalty would be assessed from there. We wouldn't kill it because there's always that opportunity as the fumble part that we talked about that could be in the air and the defense gets the ball and they get to return it, right? So we'll allow for that play to continue, but we'll have a spot foul that will bring it back.
But you would not blow it dead on the spot, is what you're saying, right?
We would not.
Okay.
We would.
Now, all right. Now, I'm a former receiver.
Okay.
We do a lot of these crossing routes, right? How, when you have that, right? So one player goes on top, one player comes underneath. From an offensive perspective, it's clearly to clear out the person who's covering one of the receivers. How can you do that? How do you distinguish between that and an illegal block or?
You bet. So again, I'd go back to a little bit of the definition, right, of who is initiating contact.
Right.
So if you run that high-low crossing path, crossing routes, and maybe there's contact, right? Was it just because people were trailing, tracking, defending their player and then they end up rubbing or running into someone versus, say the top, they cross and someone sticks their arm out
Right.
and, chuck someone, right? Sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
That's very different than
Yeah.
I'm just running a route.
Got you. So the receivers in that instance, because in the NFL, you get called, you can get called on that if you do it the
For
wrong
the
way.
pick, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
pick,
you
right?
get called for picking.
Yeah.
So in flag, as long as the players are running their routes, and if a player runs and like stops, right, like does a button hook, and a player comes underneath, the player is stationary. The defensive back probably may or may not see them or would go around them. Do you guys call picks in flag or you don't, or it's a subtle difference?
Yeah, so I would say there's nothing in the rule book that says that there's something like an illegal pick.
Gotcha.
All right.
Okay.
What there is, though, again, back to the contact, did you initiate some sort of contact that bottom line is illegal, right? So so your point,
Right.
hey, I'm running a button hook and I stop and turn on a dime, and you're the defender and you don't stop on the dime and you run into me. You initiated that contact, right?
Got you. Okay. Okay. No, this is great. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but I do know there's a lot of flea flickers that go on in flag, catch and toss. All those are illegal, right? Or all of those are legal, correct?
Yeah. So within a couple of constraints, right? So you can only have one legal forward pass or one forward pass only in a play, right? But you can lateral it. You could lateral it 10 times if you wanted to, and then throw it once forward.
Gotcha.
Again, the forward pass has to occur behind the line of scrimmage, right?
It has to be behind the line of scrimmage in order to then
To be legal.
Can you, and this is just me thinking out loud, right?
Yeah.
I'm the quarterback. I toss it over to a receiver over here. The receiver is still behind the line of scrimmage, does a little juking, tosses it back to the quarterback. Can that be a forward pass behind the line of scrimmage?
Yes.
As long as it's behind the line of scrimmage, you can pass all you want back and forth, and then
has to be backwards. So both of those passes have to be backwards, have to be laterals.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And then in order for that last person to throw the ball forward legally, right? You can throw the ball backwards as much as you want.
Okay.
But it's just got to be a backwards pass or a backwards lateral, however you want to,
sure,
kind of have that in your mind. But it's got to be backwards, and then there's only one legal forward pass, and that pass has to occur from behind the line.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. No, that sounds good. Now, since we're talking about it, and I'm thinking back to a couple of Super Bowls back when the Houston Oilers were playing, when you have a punt, receiver picks it, they start moving forward, they lateral it backwards.
Yeah.
That's legal, right? Like across
100%.
the field.
100%, as long as it's backwards.
And then, in that instance, they had players set up along, created a wall, and the receiver took off down the line. That is a legitimate play as long as those blockers or those shields are stationary.
Correct.
And okay. All right. No, this is fun. I mean, I'm thinking about my offensive mind is kind of rolling here.
There you are.
Now, are there any other things that kind of we haven't covered? Because I know we want to talk about maybe some of the new rules here, but is there anything else that maybe we've left out or we haven't really talked about yet?
One thing I think is worth mentioning is, we talk about contact, we talk about incidental contact, right? And the other place that contact happens is on a pass where you've got the defender and the offensive player going up for the ball, trying to catch the ball.
Yeah.
I say going up, but just trying to catch the ball. They could be, it could be a low pass and they're going on the ground, right? I saw one of those yesterday. But so again, some contact can happen because if you and me are trying to catch the ball while offense and defense, and we end up, again, making the rule book says making a bona fide play to catch the ball.
Gotcha.
Right. So if I'm intent on trying to catch that ball and you're intent on trying to catch that ball, and we end up at the same place because that's where the ball is.
Yeah.
Are we both going for the ball and we end up bumping, colliding, or am I going in with my shoulder or my arm extended to ward you off so I can catch the ball?
Like this, and then like I'm going to push you off, and then I'm going to catch the ball.
Catch the ball. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So that happens. I would say that kind of thing probably doesn't happen as much, but I will say that the contact happens because, for instance, you and me going for the ball and we jump up in the air or we're off our feet or whatever, right? We lose a little bit of our ability to protect each other or protect ourselves. Yeah. And we're trying to catch a ball and for the most part, really intent on and focused on that ball. Yeah. We're going to bump, right? And I go back to thinking about two other sports, right? Basketball is the easy one. Both of us going up for a rebound.
Yeah.
We're going to bump, right? The question is how much, and did I jump into you, right?
Or
and the same thing can happen. The same thing could happen on an interception, right? Did I jump into you, or did we both go, more perpendicular?
We both went up, or did I jump?
Yes. Yeah.
Knock you out of the way. So, gotcha.
Right. So again, that would be you initiating contact by jumping into me, right? Nice. I also think about soccer a little bit, right? You get those corner kicks, and you've got people going up trying to head the ball, and we just got done with the big tournament. You whether you like or not or whatever, but you get to see some of that stuff and some crazy fun plays. But you get people bumping each other, intent on trying to head the ball, right?
Yeah.
And so again, some things that you can relate from other sports, perhaps, that give you at least a perspective, right?
That might help you. That gives you a little bit of clarity and things like that. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Now, here's something. I'm a defensive back. Now I know I can't come up and chuck or redirect a receiver. But I was just thinking about this. I'm a receiver. I see the receivers out wide. That means they're running an in route. I mean, if I get in front of that receiver before they get to that spot and I stop and that receiver runs into me, is that an offensive foul, a defensive foul, or is it?
Yeah. So yeah, everything is not black and white. So in a given scenario, right? If you can't I'm just going to say this is kind of hard, right? You're just not going to be able to run up in front of someone and stop, right? But if you were there and they're 5 yards away, let's say, and you're standing there because they're running a slant, right? And you're standing there, they have to go around you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If they were to run through you or by you or, end up shoulder, maybe not throwing a shoulder, but ended up hitting you with their shoulder, that's going to be on them. They're initiating that contact.
Now, I know on the boys' side, timing is everything. And I don't know if the girls are there yet, but if a defensive back saw that slant and jumped on it, and the receiver and the defensive back are both going for the ball, kind of like going up for a ball.
Yeah.
When the ball is in the air, it's free game for anybody, right? It's not necessarily one or the other. Now, that defensive back and that receiver, they get there. They could break it up. They could intercept it. If there's some incidental contact during that, I'm assuming, and it's obviously going to be a judgment call with the referee. But if they see that and they jump on that, I mean, they have the defensive back has every right to that ball just as the receiver, right?
They do. And again, it goes back to whether the ball's, thrown up high in the air or whether it's on a dart, right? Yeah. They have the right to the ball. They don't have the right to gain advantage and initiate contact, right? So,
Gotcha.
Again, back to that. If laser focused on the ball. I don't even know who's around me, right? Kind of thing. But again, it's about intent and creating contact.
Yeah. No, I was just curious because, a lot of things are going through my mind, and I'm sure there's a lot of parents. I'm sure there's a lot of dads that played football, and there's a lot of moms that watch NFL and watch the Broncos on Sunday. But
Yeah.
now, are there any new rule changes or anything that we need to be aware of for this year?
Yeah, so there's probably a couple. One that's I think it's going to be fascinating. Really, we call it the comeback mechanic,
Okay.
uh, and so this would be in other terms, from a tackle standpoint, this would be the onside kick opportunity.
Yeah.
So if a team scores and they do their try 1 or 2 points, successful or unsuccessful, doesn't matter. After that try, if they're still trailing the other team, they can elect for a comeback opportunity, which would place the ball at their 20, fourth
Okay.
down, and they would have one play to get to the 40.
And
If
this
they
is
get to
right
the 40,
after, this is immediately after they score a touchdown and after their point after touchdown.
right? So just so again, relate this to a tackle. So that
Yeah.
happens in tackle. They line up to kick the ball off, right?
Right.
And 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 so then sometimes, especially now in the pro game is different now, right? But in the
Yeah.
college game, it's still the old. And then they kick the ball. They have
Onside.
the onside it 10 yards, recover it, keep the ball.
Right.
This is Flag's version of that. So they're going with kind of like now with the NFL. Hey, I am going to onside kick. So now everyone knows, right?
Right.
So everyone knows I'm going to try to keep the ball so I can try to catch up. And I have a 4th and 20. So I'm going to take the ball at the 20-yard line. I have to get to the 40 in one play. And if I do, I keep the ball and then try to score, in the next, however many plays.
So they start on their own 20, not on the 20 going in.
No, yeah, 20 going out.
Okay, good. Thank you
Yeah.
for clarifying that.
So
I'm
their own
sitting here.
20,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, right. And then get to the 40 for a first down and one play, and then they'll keep the ball, and then they can, and then again, it's just regular game after that, trying to see if they can continue on to score. I will say that there's a caveat when I say you have to get to the 40. There's 1 or 2 plays. One of them would be roughing the quarterback.
Right.
You rough the quarterback. The result of that is an automatic first down. So now it would be just first and whatever, and you'd keep the ball. Even though you didn't get to the 40, you would
Right.
keep the ball, and you would get the chance to move on down the field for another score. But yeah, so all timing and rules apply during that comeback 4th down and 20 play. The defense intercepts the ball. They get the ball wherever it ends up. If they say they throw a run, a play, whatever, and they end up, it's at the 35, right? They
Sure.
didn't convert. The defense is going to take over right there on the 35-yard.
So on that comeback, let me just clarify.
Yeah.
After they score, point after touchdown, whatever, they can declare a comeback. They get the ball on their own 20. It's 4th down. They have to get to the 40.
Yep.
If they get to the 40, is it another 4th down and 20?
Nope. It becomes regular flag for us.
Okay.
And it'd be first down and whatever. Say they got to the 39, right? It'd be 1st and 19, right?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Now we didn't talk about this, and this was the other question. If I'm going for a 1 point after touchdown, explain that, and then explain where the ball gets placed if I want to go for 2 points.
You bet. Yeah. So a 1-point try is from the 3-yard line, and then a 2-point try is from the 10-yard line.
Okay.
And then it's all regular, right? There's still the 1 yard neutral zone. It's everything is just normal, except that the clock is it's an untimed down, right? So the clock's not running during the try, but everything else is standard to the rest of the game.
Okay. Now I'm smiling because I've got, on those 4th and 1, but you're at the 3. If you have a player that's athletic enough and that player runs forward and they leap from the 3-yard line and they're in the air, ball forward, is that legal? Can you leave your feet like that? 2, I guess if the defender or whatever, because sometimes teams will line up in a tight formation.
Correct.
So that player, if those guys stepped up, moved forward, hands behind their back, and then that other player comes over the top, is that legal? And then how, I'm assuming
that is illegal.
that is illegal. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious because
there's a couple things.
Cause safety, right? I mean, obviously safety.
Correct. Right. Again, no one's wearing pads. Right.
Yeah.
So we're not going to create contact or allow contact to be created by someone leaping, say, over even their own player. Right. Certainly not that. And I will say that they did clarify, the Federation this year clarified the rule about hurdling. So in a way, the leaping kind of goes the same way, but we probably all saw Saquon Barkley, do the high hurdle over someone.
Yeah.
There's other players who have done it too, right? That activity is illegal in flag.
Okay, perfect.
Right. Now, again, just to also be clear, let's say there's a player laying prone on the ground, we're going to allow a runner to essentially step over them, right? That is not hurdling. So.
Yeah. I mean, because they're trying to obviously avoid, they want to get over. So You're allowing them. I mean, technically, in order running, you're leaving your feet anyway, but you're not
100%.
You're not going up for a dunk.
Yeah, right.
But no, that's good to know, because I was confused about the 1 and 2 point, and a couple parents asked me that yesterday, and I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it's at the 10, maybe it's at the 15. I don't know. You got to get farther to get in to get that extra point. So
for sure, that's true.
No, now with that comeback rule, are there any other kind of like other adjustments or other rules that we need to be aware of for this year?
That's probably the biggest, and again I say I think most fascinating, because when will a team initiate that, right? Because it can be done in the first quarter, right? So it doesn't have to wait till. So it'll be fascinating to see when that happens. Looking forward to that. The other, I guess, probably the biggest rule change that occurred is after a safety.
Okay.
So in the past, we would just take the ball to the other 30, and we would be first and 10 from the 30 for the the team that just scored the safety, if you will, right? This year they will do a scrimmage kick, so it'll be just like a fourth down. Hey, I declared a punt. It'll be a scrimmage kick from their own 20, and they will kick the ball. All timing applies, all rules apply. However you want to line your defense up to receive that, just like it would be on, any other fourth down punt in the middle of the game. So that's gonna be interesting a little bit when safeties occur. It's one of those things. Safeties occur, not a lot, but it will.
I saw one yesterday. It did happen yesterday. So it was the first points of the 2027 season. So
right. So, yeah. So, but it does occur. They do occur. So, that's another, tweak on the putting the ball back in play piece. So I think it gives the defense or the receiving team maybe an opportunity to, better their field position ultimately.
Now, when it's a punt, or in this case, like the safety happens and it's like a punt.
Yeah.
Does the kicker have to start at the 20, or do they cannot go beyond the 20? And then on a punt yesterday, go ahead, answer that question, then I'll follow up with my punting question.
Yeah, so I'm gonna maybe answer both of them for you, maybe. So the punt after a safety is exactly the same punt as it would be on any other fourth down play, any part of the game elsewhere. You're going to line up and, have your players probably on the line of scrimmage. Most do.
Mhm.
You're going to snap the ball, and
Yeah.
the punter's going to kick it from behind the line of scrimmage, just like they would normally.
Yeah.
And I'll say, and then everything else is the same. The ball's in the air, pick it up, advanced, and
Okay.
and the like. Right. The one thing that is, again, in the punting game is different than the tackle game is the offense lines up and they cannot move, with the exception of the center. We give them an opportunity to move lateral just to get out of the way, from potentially getting kicked into the ball. But they ultimately have to all be stationary until that ball is kicked.
And they are so this was interesting. So yesterday when I saw a team punt, the center snapped it back. The punter was back 5, 6, 7 yards.
Yeah.
The punter can be up close, right? I mean, the punter can go
be
up to the line of scrimmage and then do the kick, right?
They can.
Gotcha.
The rule is that they have to be behind the line of scrimmage when the ball's kicked, meaning the ball has to be behind the line of scrimmage, right?
Right.
So they can't be like in our safety situation. They can't be standing on the 20 and kick the ball because that, they're going to be beyond the line of scrimmage.
They'll be beyond.
So essentially, they just got to be kicking the ball from behind the line of scrimmage to be legal.
Gotcha.
Now,
Okay.
the other side of that coin is, again, so the offense has to be stationary still until the ball's kicked, and then they can run down the field and pull a flag.
Yeah.
The defense can move all that they want on the defensive side of their line of scrimmage. So you could have a player or two at the line of scrimmage with their hands straight up in the air, right? And trying to block, if there happens to be a little bit lower of a kick, blocking that kick at the line of scrimmage. They cannot cross the line of scrimmage. That would be a penalty. They have to stay on their side. And then again, the ball's kicked. They could try to block it. And or at that point, if it goes by them, they'll probably turn and head downfield just like along with the offense, right?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no, I was just really curious because I saw a lot of teams kicking pretty far back. And I'm thinking, since there's no rush, I would take advantage of that extra 5, 6, 7 yards and stuff like that. No, this has been great.
Yeah. Man, so it's really about if the defense has someone that could block that ball as to how many yards you want to give up, if you will, on that kick, right?
But they're not allowed to rush the punter, right?
Not allowed to rush, so they can only be at that line of scrimmage with their hands up. I mean, they can jump, obviously.
Okay.
But they have to be on their side.
But they have to be on. They can't be in the neutral zone. They have to be on the other side. So that's interesting. Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna be watching a lot of games this fall, so I'll be seeing how teams take advantage of that. Greg, this has been great, and I really appreciate. We really thank you for being out at the Jamboree because the Jamboree went awesome yesterday. I thought your crew did really well. And I know you had a lot of new guys that were kind of learning, and getting in those extra games was huge for them. But we want to say thank you and really appreciate it. And I might be picking your brain later in the season because like I said, I'll be watching some games. And I know last year there was a couple of games that I saw, and I just had a lot of questions.
You bet.
Like I said, new to the game, trying to figure out what's going on. And then, of course, there's judgment calls, but, we encourage parents, look, we need our referees. They come out. So be kind, be nice, give them some grace. We're all human. Sometimes we do make mistakes, but, a lot of these calls happen so fast. They're judgment calls. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
So so one, thank you for the compliments from yesterday. Enjoyed it. Love to promote the game. And I will tell you, we're always looking for officials, right? So, but I will say that we put our time in as well. We start in May. We start our training, rule book trainings, field clinics. things like what we did yesterday, we do a lot of those during the summer, maybe not on the grand scale, right?
Sure.
But we'll be out there with 2 or 3 or 4 teams maybe, and getting our work in and helping guys understand, again, what the game looks like and why and where to be and look and all that kinds of things, and then really just to understand how the game flows. And
Yeah.
so, and I will say it's really not from lack of trying and learning and preparing if we miss a call. It's really not. And there's, and again, I'll finish up with what we started with. It's a 40 by 80 field with 3 officials on it.
Yeah.
And
Lots to cover.
and there's 14 players, right? So there's a lot of things that you look to your left or you look to your right and you miss the other one, right? Sort of
Right.
thing. I'm not, and again, not making an excuse, right? We try to get our wide lens camera on, but it sometimes it doesn't catch everything.
Nope, I hear you. Well, and this isn't the NFL where you got 6 or 7 or 8 referees, plus you got a sideline judge, plus you got this, plus, I mean, come on, guys. This is only, this is high school football and it's flag. And one of the things is it's fun. It is a fast-paced game. It's really fun to watch. And the other great thing about this game is Colorado has some really good players, and we saw them yesterday. So, and like I said, we appreciate your staff coming out. We appreciate you guys, and we really look forward to seeing you. And I can't wait to talk to you during the playoffs because I'm going to have a lot of questions.
You bet. Again, thanks for having me today. If the opportunity arises mid-season and you want to do something again,
Absolutely.
I'm certainly open to having some further discussions, because education is part of making this game great.
Absolutely. Great. It's been great having you on the show. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.